little kitchen that we have here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled that you're here and you're sharing. Would you tell us a little bit about the book, first of all?
Yeah, so Abandonment to Forgiveness, I love this book because a couple of reasons. So one reason is because, of course, it shares a little bit of my story, and it takes people from the pain and takes them to really just the winning part. You know, we all know with the Bible and with God's story that we're all winners. The end is written.
Absolutely.
We just have to receive that. And so, but forgiveness was such a big part and has been such a big part of my journey. And it has been impactful. It has completely transformed my life. And so that's why it's always so important to me to really talk and speak and help other people. You know, people are really hurting.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, those that have hurt you most, you got to forgive. You know, I think one of the biggest things that I taught in a class once, and I speak about it in a few of my writing projects, is that as Christians, we want to believe that forgiveness is a choice. And it's not, it's a command.
Yes.
And so that to me is so big, you know. But very passionate about forgiveness and actually coming out with a 55 days of forgiveness text message program for people to help. But it's so important, you know, to just because of course the minute we decide we're going to forgive someone, the enemy comes in and, you know, does all different kinds of stuff, or at least tries to. And so that tool is to really help people step that out.
And you even have tools in the book as well. There's a Bible study in there and places to journal and answer questions to help help readers on the road to forgiveness as well.
Yes, yeah. And, you know, Bible studies are so great, too, because it helps you, leads you to look up the scriptures, learn what the Word really says. Like we said as Christians, so many times we think, oh, well, once they've paid the price, I might then choose to forgive them. And, you know, God didn't say, well, once you've deemed them, you know, deserving of your forgiveness. No, it doesn't say that. In fact, an interesting part that I found that was kind of like an aha moment to me to help me to understand just personally how much God really thought of forgiveness and where things really were in the grand scheme of things was when, you know, it even says not to tithe if you have an issue with someone else. In the Bible, it talks about don't even tithe, go make peace, then come back. And so, you know, God wants there to be peace and forgiveness. So very important.
Absolutely. Before communion as well. So important.
Yes, constantly. Well, we're talking about with the abandonment side of things.
Yeah.
That has been a big part of your story and why forgiveness is so important with your book saying abandonment to forgiveness. Do you mind telling us a little bit about the abandonment piece?
Sure. So by the time I was 5, my parents had married and divorced twice. And so from 5 to 14, almost 15, I had not seen my father but one time. I would usually speak with him once a year or maybe sometimes twice. He would call me at Christmas and my birthday, which is December and January. And so some summers I would get a call, but I remember sitting in my room even, I would write my father these long letters, you know, on notebook paper, you know, 7 or 8. And I remember that, of course, the times were different now. It wasn't, you know, free long-distance calling like it is now. But, and my father, when he would call, the conversations might be about 5 minutes long, and then he'd start complaining about his phone bill. And so I would go up in my room and cry. You know, I just so badly wanted my father to be in my life. And it's so interesting because I have reflected back to that and thought about just as children, you know, how we just love our parents. And there's that sense of needing that, you know, that relationship. And so I can see, you know, so many times we've seen children that have been abused and they're in horrible situations, but yet they still want to be, you know, with their parents, and it's so unhealthy for them. But it goes back to they are their parents. And then at 14 and a half, my mother vanished. She changed her identity. Back then, it was before we really knew the term identity theft, but she had committed identity theft where she took on someone else's identity and virtually really just essentially vanished from the face of the earth.
Wow.
And was gone for nearly 18 years. And so I did not know if my mother was dead or alive. I'm an only child, and my mother had really been my best friend. I loved and adored my mother. I was very close with my mom.
I can't even imagine just disappearing, the not knowing.
Yeah.
Has to
the
be.
not knowing, when I see people in the news, that it really triggers for me, because when you see, like, Natalie Holloway, when she became missing, I was pregnant with my second son. It was just gut-wrenching every time I see her mom, because I relate to that. Whenever a child or a parent or anyone is missing and people don't know, it's a trigger for me, because
Sure.
I really, I can grieve with them, because I understand it's a pain that is just, in a lot of ways unbearable.
Yeah.
I say that I was really living in my own hell. Mm-hmm. And so it was just the not knowing, like you said, Jenny.
Yeah.
And so,
and then how did God come in and help to heal that and grow you into this new place of forgiveness?
Well, one night I was sitting on my sofa and I was crying. It had to do with a family situation where essentially I wasn't being treated like family with my own family.
Yeah.
My father remarried, has another daughter, and once again, just not being treated like family. When you come for the holidays and they've already opened Christmas presents because, they're they're a family. It's like, well, I thought I was family. So I've spent a lot of my life really trying to be family with people that really are family, but don't treat you like family because they see it differently, And so when really it shouldn't be that way. But one night sitting on my sofa crying, my husband got up and left the room and to deal with something, and I was still sitting there, and in my spirit I just clearly heard God say to me, "You're not even grateful for what you have." And I was defiant. I'm just, lay it all out there. I was like, grateful for what? And God then proceeded to give me 3 visions and showed me 3 different areas of my life that I had been greatly blessed, where I personally had prayed for this or that. And so they were visions that were, I knew God had really worked specifically in one of them specifically, and the other 2, of course, he had worked. Yeah. And so I sat there and I thought, what am I doing? I could almost feel myself come out of myself and see myself sitting on the sofa. And I thought, what am I doing? I am, I'm crying over these 2 people, my mother and my father, and odds are they're not sitting on their sofas crying about what they had or hadn't missed and what they had or hadn't done, what they had or hadn't been in my life. And I was like, this is just absolute insanity.
Right, torturing yourself, essentially.
And just still grieving for what the enemy had stolen. And just, I have these 2 children, and they're healthy, and I can hear them laughing in the room. And, I got this great husband, and all of this, got a fantastic home, and, all of this stuff. And all things I had prayed for. And so, what happened is God proceeded. I declared that night things were going to change. Did not recognize that forgiveness was part of my problem, that there was unforgiveness. But what God first did, I say God took me down a path marked forgiveness, but what happened was that path began with gratitude. And God started transforming me on the inside. I remember saying to a friend of mine, I'm different, something's different, I can't explain it, I'm different. And so it's so interesting because people around you will notice the changes, but I think you know them first.
Absolutely.
And so it's interesting because even my husband later, a few months later, would say, you are very different. And so, but it was just, holding on to so much pain and going, okay, yes, I've got this and I've got that but I still don't have my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
And so it was still that huge empty hole that I needed to really just accept. You can't make people love you. And you can't make people want to be with you. You can't make people want to be your mom or your children's grandmother or anything like. You just can't make them do that. And so that's where gratitude came in. And you start down that path. And so it was gratitude. And then one day I woke up and was like, what is grace? What is grace? Like, what is grace? We hear it all the time. And I started asking people about grace. And then about a month later, it was mercy. It was like I had this thirst that I just had to find out what mercy really was and drill down to it, and started reading scriptures and asking people, I asked you about grace. Well, what about mercy? What do you think mercy really? How do you see mercy? And then it was forgiveness. And I remember when God first showed me I was to write about this book, Abandonment to Forgiveness, and I was like, all I had was one word. And when I sat down was forgiveness. And so when I sat down to write, I remember just typing as fast as I could to try to as it was flowing on me. It was like, forgiveness, well, what am I going to write about with that? You know? But it was right at the end of that journey. God's so funny. It was like right on time, too. It was like, and cue the deer. It was like that. It was like, okay, so she's far enough along. Now we're going to have her write this book. And I'm not a violent person by any means, but when I sat down to write, I remember hurting so bad, wanting to throw the laptop across the room against the wall. But it was really, I think I say I'm going to keep getting that master's degree the rest of my life in forgiveness because, it's always another level. God still shows you more.
And God is such a part of the process.
Oh,
with you through all of that.
The whole process.
Showing you His love and showing you His mercy and grace and all of the blessings that He's given you and really allowing you to bloom, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. It's completely changed my life. It's completely transformed everything. Even the mother and Christmas morning. My husband talks more about Christmas morning when he talks about my changes. Because
that you're a different person on Christmas morning.
Because I could go out and open presents with the kids and do all that, and then go in the room, close the door, and be crying. And my husband come in going, I thought everything was great. Yeah. And me, going, are you kidding me? And so, because again, it's that deep hole that my mom and my father, it's Christmas and they're, they're in other
and He's healing that for you.
Yeah. It goes back to gratitude and grace and mercy. And what it did to me is I spent so many years thinking, well, I don't care. I remember saying this for years where I would say, it does not matter what the situation is. If a mother does not have her child, that is unacceptable. And so that's where grace and mercy came in. Yeah. And you start realizing that, whatever the situations are, some people just aren't capable. Sure. And so, I just have to give them grace.
Yes. Thank God
start
that
considering.
And thank God that God is capable of always being there and always giving that love over and over and over again. And Michelle, thank you so much. We want to award you the ex-victim of the week.
Oh,
yay. We're so thankful that you came on and shared so much of your journey with us and how God came in and healed that for you and continues to heal that for you.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness.
So you get an ex-victim necklace, and because of our trademarks for chocolates and tissues.
Well, I don't know a single girl that won't want chocolates and tissues and jewelry.
Exactly. To continue on your mission, on your journey, and to continue blooming and every step of the way. And the ex-victim, of course, goes along with the shirt that Paula is wearing. But the symbol is an X with a small V, so that it's a big for X, meaning that no longer I was a victim, but I am no longer the victim.
And don't we have a charity about abandonment that we wanted to talk about? The Abandoned Children's Fund?
The Abandoned Children's Fund as well is found at abandonedchildrensfund.org. They have already given $6.6 million to abandoned kids around the world, and we are so thrilled for them to be on this mission along with God and have His heart for the orphans and the homeless and those people who have been abandoned, similar to what you've experienced, Michelle. It's not just in the poor countries that we talk about abandoned children, and it's so easy to think that, that happens elsewhere. That doesn't really happen here, but it does. It happens, unfortunately, in our own backyards, and we're just so thankful that God is able to come in and heal all of those places. So that thank you so much so that we can use the fertilizer
of our past to bloom today.
A free PDF copy of the Bloom in the Dark book and a full list of Bloom Today's coaching tools can be found on bloomtodaytv.com. Then visit Bloom Today's Facebook group for deeper conversation.